as we wait for people to join us, go ahead and in the chat window, let us know where you're calling in from. The Netherlands. What time is it there, Joshua? Oh, better than 4 a.m. for sure. Ooh. All right. If you're just joining us, we're giving everyone a few more minutes to join. And then if you can in the chat, let us know where you're joining us from. Red stick. Lots of people from Baton Rouge today, which I love to see. All right. So as we wait for a few more people to join us, if you have any questions while Jared's presenting, drop them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that and try to get to those as quickly as possible. Super casual. Feel free to ask any questions at any time. We can definitely pause and try to get those answered. And if I'll drop my email into the chat as well, if you'd like a copy of the presentation after, you just have to send me a message and I'll make sure to share it with you. If you're just joining us, let us know where you're joining us from. We're going to get started in just a second.
And let me know to make sure you can see my screen.
I can.
Okay, awesome. Thanks.
All right, and I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Again, if you're joining us, drop in where you're joining us from. I've dropped my email into the chat, which is ricky@blinkjarmedia.com. Just shoot me an email if you'd like a copy of this presentation afterwards. Super casual. If you have any questions, drop them in chat, and I will try to grab Jared's attention and get those answered. Thank you for joining us today.
All right, guys. Thanks for, like Ricky said, thanks for joining us. I'm excited to see people from all over the globe. Obviously, plenty from Baton Rouge because that's where we're based. But I can see we have the Netherlands, Italy, Toronto. That is really, really cool. So I wanted to share kind of my takeaways from the most recent AI conference, which is called Maicon. And I'll jump into that in a few minutes. Before I get started, though, I wanted to kind of give you guys a brief overview of what this group is, what it's about. So we are the HubSpot user group, and we represent the Baton Rouge area. But you don't have to be from Baton Rouge, and you don't have to use HubSpot to join. Obviously, it is just a community of like-minded people that want to learn more about marketing and stay on top of the latest trends. We have free quarterly meetups. Our goal is honestly just to educate and inspire. And again, it's not a requirement for you to be a HubSpot user, nor is it a requirement for you to be from Baton Rouge. It's just a place where we can share challenges and try to solve challenges with marketing. So for today's purposes, it's pretty straightforward. We'll have a brief introduction. We'll get into the meat of things with this presentation. We will have a Q&A at the end. So like Ricky said, ask your questions in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. If I don't know the answer, hopefully someone on the call will. So that's the really cool thing about this is not, me standing on a pedestal, talking to everyone. We want this to be free flowing and very informal. So if you have questions, let us know. And then we'll briefly at the end tell you about the next event, which is going to be in the fourth quarter. So a little bit about myself. I am an LSU grad. For those of you in Toronto, Italy, in the Netherlands, that's Louisiana State University, home of the LSU Tigers. I am the founder and CEO of an inbound marketing agency and HubSpot partner. We're called Blinkjar Media. But for today's purposes, we're really focused more on just the HubSpot user group and hope to solve for any marketing challenges and try to stay on top of what's happening. Anybody that is even remotely close to marketing knows that everything has been focused on AI because there's about 8,000 changes a day in AI. And it's pretty exciting, but it's also very overwhelming. The presentation today, the sources mainly come from Maicon. a little bit about Maicon. Maicon is an event that's put on and sponsored by the Marketing AI Institute. They're based out of Cleveland. The Marketing AI Institute was started by Paul Rotzer. Paul Rotzer was the first ever. His agency was the first ever HubSpot agency. They were based out of Cleveland, and he wrote several books on inbound marketing, and has recently written a book on marketing artificial intelligence. So if you don't have that book, please run out and get it. You can also get it on, basically streaming. And they actually gave it away at the conference, which was pretty cool. So I have an extra copy if anyone wants it. So the presentation, obviously, with the title, is coming mainly from Maicon. There are a few excerpts from the book and from Paul's podcast to help support the themes and the overall messaging from Maicon. Again, the conference was about a month ago in July in Cleveland, Ohio, and it was I believe this was the fourth. But to give you a little perspective, the first 3 years, starting in 2020, he was hit with COVID, so he had to do the conference virtually, and he had about 100 attendees. The second year still had the kind of ramifications from COVID, still going through all the protocols, so he had to have it virtual again. Last year, he had the conference in Cleveland, and there were about 150 to 200 people attending. This year, fast forward to this year, there were close to 800 attendees. So from 150 to 200 attendees one year to 800 attendees the next year. That's pretty incredible increase in attendance. And obviously, there was this little thing called ChatGPT that happened between the 2022 session and the 2023 session. So there was a huge spike because of that. And obviously, people woke up and said, hey, what is this AI thing? And what do I need to know about it? So there were speakers from all over. There were speakers from Google, LinkedIn, agencies across the nation. So there was a great representation of marketers. So there are several different categories that I want to cover today. So we're going to jump right into it. The top 5 insights from Maicon. 1 is awareness gap. So basically what this means is there still is today a huge awareness gap for AI, despite all the transformational potential of AI and what has happened with ChatGPT and Google's Bard. Many marketers still have a low level of awareness about AI. And when you dive deeper into this, there is a large gap in awareness with the general public, if you will, outside of marketing. I was at a event about 2 weeks ago and was talking to someone I just met about ChatGPT, and her first question was, what is ChatGPT? So that kind of threw me back. It was like, whoa, there are still many people out there that still just don't even know about AI and its potential. So there is a very large awareness gap out there. Secondly, big tech is betting on the future of AI. So this is no secret, but it's sort of an AI arms race right now. It all started really with the launch, albeit a surprise launch by OpenAI of ChatGPT. But Microsoft is a big investor into OpenAI in ChatGPT. But Microsoft also is in the beta launch of something called CoPilot. If you haven't seen the video on CoPilot, I highly suggest that you Google it or search it on YouTube. It's about a 2.5 minute video. It will be jaw dropping of what Microsoft is about to launch for CoPilot, which is basically infusing all of the benefits and features of Chat GPT and AI into the workspace. So PowerPoint, Word, Excel, all of that within the next year to 2 years, we will be, as a society and as a workplace, we will be leveraging AI in all of the tools that we use on a daily basis for work. Same thing with Google. In response to Chat GPT, they launched Bard, and their kind of answer to Copilot is something called Duet. Amazon has Bedrock, which is their kind of large language model. Facebook has Llama, and Apple has been very, very, very suspiciously quiet, but is the largest investor in AI. So they have something that they've teased called Apple GPT. My bet is it's right around the corner, and they are going to launch it pretty soon here. The rise of large language models. No secret that ChatGPT is probably the most known now of the large language models, but they are poised to become the foundational, become like the foundational piece in marketing. Paul Rotzer, who headed up the conference that I mentioned earlier, his take on large language models is that LLMs, or large language models, are going to be the next CRMs. They're going to be that important to organizations, big and small. So one thing that they was sort of a common theme in the conference was that right now, most people, the most common use is, or the most common application is text or content generation. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, meaning there's going to be so much more with AI, including, code generation, personal assistants, AI agents, video, graphics. All of those things are going to, and we're starting to see it already, are going to start to increasingly be commonly used across the board. One of the things that's just kind of, it seems very obvious, but when you really think about it, you take a step back and think about what this means to us. I know we have some college students on this webinar, and this is really, really important for everyone to know, especially when you have your whole future in front of you. But this is the least capable form of AI you will ever experience. So many people have been just kind of blown away with ChatGPT 3.5 and ChatGPT 4 with its capabilities. But when you stop and think about this is the least capable form of AI you will ever encounter, it's pretty jaw-dropping to think of what's to come. Uneven AI distribution. So basically, the value that you're going to gain from AI, from something like a large language model, and how quickly you realize what that value is directly proportionate to how educated you are within the field of AI. So meaning, there's a direct proportionate value. So right now, if you don't put any time or any sweat equity into learning AI and all of its capabilities, it's going to basically be garbage in, garbage out, right? But if you take the time to educate yourself, learn from others, you're really going to start to learn the nuances of AI and leverage its capabilities and really be able to get some very large value out of AI. The big question or big issue looming upon all of this and it's really probably a whole nother session for a whole nother day, is when we start to talk about leveraging AI, we really start to kind of open up the can of worms or Pandora's box on privacy issues, data issues, trademark, copyright, all of those things. We're sort of in the land of the wild, wild west right now. But what is important to know is that, it's hard for government to keep up with this fast pace. They're always going to be 2 or 3 steps behind as it relates to the enhancements and the evolution of AI. So this is going to be an ongoing battle for many, many, many years. There will be plenty of lawsuits. There already are. And the big dilemma or big challenge for corporations, small, large, is, how is this going to affect them? And from a privacy standpoint, what should you and should you not be inputting into these large language models? Because once you input that information, it's public knowledge. And so there's a big dilemma on proprietary information, particularly within corporations. That's why there's a large race to be, to have more closed operations as it relates to closed versions of ChatGPT instead of it being open sourced. Impact on knowledge workers. This is sort of the $1 million question that everyone has. And I know, again, with college students, this is one that you should be paying close attention to because it affects the workplace and, job availability and what's going to happen across the landscape. The real answer to this is no one knows. It's sort of a mystery right now on what impact AI will have on knowledge workers. What we do know is that a large percent, in fact, 80% of what marketers do every day will be intelligently automated to some degree in the next 1 to 2 years. And we're already seeing some of that take place. So when you start to automate certain daily tasks that marketers normally would have done themselves, what does that mean? What do you do with that time that you've just gotten back? Because basically AI is doing the work for you. So that's going to cause a huge shift in the labor force, not only in marketing, but across pretty much every knowledge working sector across the globe. There are people kind of taking educated guesses on how AI will impact jobs, right? And that's what the biggest fear is, what will people do? Will I have a job next year? If I don't have a job, what will I do? So that's a big dilemma and sort of a insecurity that everyone sort of has. But one of the quotes that's been floating around, and it was at the conference as well, is AI will not take your job. A human who understands AI will take your job. So what that basically means is those that embrace AI and learn about it and leverage it to their advantage are going to be okay. It's the ones that really ignore it and act like it's not around, then those are the ones that will basically be, unfortunately, eliminated. There was this really, really good analogy or story that really summarizes what's happening today and what will happen. And it's a really good story to kind of keep in mind that jobs necessarily won't be eliminated, but there will be some sort of shift that takes place. So let's take you back to the year 1764. There were people who were called spinsters, and they were very, very needed and very, very popular. And spinsters would spin fibers into thread or yarn to make clothes and thousands of other things, right? And so the act of spinning was really, really essential and needed. And so there were plenty of spinsters around. Well, later that year, there was a large, impactful invention called the spinning jenny. And what the spinning jenny did was it was automated. It was like an automated spinster, and it did the work of 10 spinsters. So it put basically the individual spinster out of business. And while one of those 10 really became an operator of the spinning jenny, the other 9 were kind of left to guess on what they were going to do. So it put 9 people temporarily out of work. But what they found out really quickly was because this spinning jenny could do 10 times the work, they needed 10 times the amount of thread. So those 9 people that were left without a job became more involved in supplying and needling thread together for the spinning jenny. So their responsibilities shifted. So they no longer were out of work. They were just doing something different because that demand was 10 times. You can think of AI and what's taking place in marketing, whether it's content generation or anything else. What's happening is you may not need as many content producers or content generators, but you still need humans to monitor that content. And if you are able to 10 times that content, in other words, produce more content on a daily, monthly, quarterly basis, you're going to need more editors to edit that content. So your job responsibility is going to shift from complete content generation to more of editing or research or optimization. So all of those things are still needed. It's just that your responsibility will change. The 5 best practices that I took away from Maicon: adopt responsible AI. So right now, as I said earlier, laws and litigation are going to be way behind the curve, right? So it's going to be up to us to ethically apply AI. And in doing so, that's going to encourage large, small corporations to have some sort of education and training on AI. Some of the things that were discussed were creating an internal AI console, developing responsible AI principles and generative AI policies. This is all so new that none of this has been generated. If you think about this, guys that are in college, universities haven't really adopted this at all. And they will have to at some point. They will have to have some sort of AI code, AI policy, AI principles to kind of live by. And otherwise, you're leaving it up to individuals to kind of guess what's acceptable and what's not. And that's for the workplace or the education system. It all needs to be, we're sort of at the forefront of this, but we all need to adopt responsible AI techniques and policies and training. And it all starts with education and training. But as business leaders and people that are leading, the charge into the future, it's our responsibility to develop the use of AI within organizations or educational systems. Because if you don't, it's going to be abused, unfortunately. Another thing that I sort of took away was this whole thing of prompt engineering and what you tell the AI or the large language model, what you want it to do. And some people feel like they have this down pat. Some people are lost. But the output is only as good as the input, meaning, it's sort of that garbage in, garbage out. So one of the tactics or strategies that one of the speakers suggested was this thing called RACE, and it's role, action, context, execute. So basically, this is the order that you provide your prompt in. So the role would be, you are a Google Analytics certified professional. you know Google Analytics 4, Google Tag Manager, Google Looker Studio, and BigQuery. So that's automatically telling that large language model where they are proficient. And so it doesn't have to go outside of those lines. It stays within those parameters. The action that you want it to take, your first task is to examine this table of channel grouping data and analyze the overall composition of site traffic. You will be analyzing for marketing channel diversity. So you're basically now telling it what specific action you want it to take. The next is context. You want to give it some context. So basically, of the marketing channel diversity, you're giving it context or examples. You want to know organic search, email traffic, direct, organic social, on a side, referral, organic video. So you're telling it what you want it to go find, and then execute, analyze the composition of the site traffic, and provide recommendations in bullet point format. So when you put this into context and you tell the large language model what to do, and you give it very specific information based on that sort of race theory, here's what it will come back with. It'll give you a breakout of the organic search, email, direct. It basically will do the work for you. Now, as an agency owner, pulling it and extracting this data takes hours. We do monthly reports, quarterly reports for our clients. Reporting is a very important but menial task, and it takes time to build all of this. So the fact that this can essentially produce this within seconds is pretty astounding. It saves us hours, if not days, of time. So you can see it extracts the data and kind of channels it, but then it takes it further and gives you recommendations based on that information. What next steps should that client take based on this information? Again, this is a microcosm of what we do for our clients. And before AI, collectively, this would take us 25 to 30 hours a month with all of our clients. So what are we going to now do with that time is the question. One of the things is to not just set this and forget about it, but actually have human interaction with this, human oversight to see what these things are, and to provide more creative ingenuity into these suggestions and make sure it's not going off the rails. Encourage AI adoption by doing things like those AI consoles, conducting workshops, doing things like we're doing today. I think that's encouraging AI adoption across all sectors. But it's important to also encourage it within your organizations. One of the examples was a person at this conference was a representative from VMware. And she talked about how, they're a large company. They have, I think, over 20,000 employees. And initially, people were questioning how to use AI, what was acceptable, what wasn't. Could they use something like a large language model internally, or is that against the rules? So initially, employees were sort of guessing on what was acceptable and what was not within the organization. Again, this was all new back in October, November of 2022. But now what we're starting to see, just like VMware, is people started having internal brainstorming meetings, which led to weekly meetings about adapting, corporate guidelines for AI use, giving employees, guardrails on what they can and can't do, what's acceptable according to the organization. And the initial results were fantastic. The internal council has created company-wide AI guidelines, generative AI policies. So, what are the do's and don'ts of open sourced AI large language models like ChatGPT? Can they use them? They provided use cases for what's acceptable and what's not. And it really created an environment of transparency and clarity around, AI questions. One of the things that we need to be careful about, and this is probably going to become more and more prevalent, is addressing AI biases. And these are biases that can be found across all large language models. And the good the important part is to be aware of them so that you know how to sort of fix them, and not relying 100% on what is generated by AI. An example would be Amazon had created their own sort of AI system which helped recruit employees. And what it did was evaluated applicants based on their suitability for various roles. And they learned how to judge if someone was suitable for a role or not by looking at their um, resume, and then looking at the history of how Amazon hired based on resumes from previous candidates. Unfortunately, it became biased against women because in the past, for certain roles, it was so male heavy that this algorithm or this AI thought that automatically males had a more points, if you will, um, from a starting standpoint. Obviously, that system's flawed, it's biased, and they had to scrap the whole thing. But you'll see these type of AI biases across all forms of large language models, because basically what they're doing is those large language models are just basically looking at history. That's all. They're just looking at historical text and scraping it from the web, taking that text and making a predictive analysis. Excuse me. One of the other things that was a common theme was balancing out AI and automation with human efforts. Um, the analogy of the Tesla was brought up, where while a Tesla can auto drive you if you buy the right model, it's still not to the point, nor maybe will it ever be, where you want to give it complete automation and go back and go in your back seat and fall asleep while the car drives on its own. It certainly has somewhat of the capabilities of doing it, but it's extremely dangerous, and it makes mistakes. It's sort of the same thing with any kind of marketing automation. We want to leave the uh, generated or automated parts of our daily jobs to the things that are menial and easy and boring, and not, there really needs no human involvement. Leave that part to the AI, and humans can focus on more of the creative concepts, and then also overseeing the generic generation by AI. So, a good balance is probably the best solution to this. And that's basically what this chart and graph describes. As far as AI use cases, there are many different ways to use AI, and there will be many, many more, as I mentioned previously. In the future, it won't be just for text generation. There will be more enhancements in video and more enhancements in text to video. But for now, the top AI use cases that this conference kind of taught me was obviously content creation. You give the large language model a command, usually using sort of that race concept, and it's going to generate content for you. Now, most of this content is okay, it's not great. And as more and more of this content becomes commoditized, meaning everyone and anyone can generate content, what's going to happen is the content that has human interaction, human experiences, human expertise are going to be the content pieces that stand out and that, quite frankly, rank and produce for companies. There's data extraction. So basically you can give the large language model some piece of content. Maybe it's a blog, or maybe it's a web page of content, and you can ask it to extract data. This example is asking it to provide some SEO keyword phrases based on the content. So again, this is something that normally would take an agency like ours several hours to produce. Now it can be produced within seconds. Now, all of this, no matter what, the caveat is don't just take it for, true value and go with it, because there are many times where the recommendations are flawed, and it definitely needs human interaction, human oversight to revise and implement. Summarization: you can take a podcast or a transcript from a podcast and basically say, give me a summary of what this podcast is about, and it will do it within seconds. Pretty cool way to add value. Personality analysis: it can literally take conversations or recordings of conversations that you have. Like at Blinkjar, we record all of our meetings, and then we have an AI that spits out the notes. You can literally just take out what the client said from that meeting, and you can say, tell me about this person's personality. And based on the input that client had during that meeting, it will tell you about that client's personality. Pretty cool stuff. Classification: it can basically take any type of content and it can categorize that information. So you can say, on this article, tell me what 3 categories this article can be based on. And so like this one is saying AI and creativity, generative AI and marketing, and the future of marketing. So again, something that normally would take a while to categorize. You'd have to, read through the whole thing and then kind of categorize it yourself. Now that can be done automatically. So the big question is, how will all of this impact marketing? The first and most honest answer I can give you is nobody truly knows. And if they tell you they know, they're lying. If I knew, I probably would be on a beach somewhere sipping on a margarita. We have no idea. What we do know is that we are at a crossroads of marketing, and at the very beginning of very large and impactful change. So much so that Google has been forced to kind of take a look at itself for the first time in 20 years and say, we need to make some changes. One of those large changes is going to be the change to the search engine results page. So based on large language models and how people are using them, they now have to infuse this AI into the search engine results page. And what they're doing is by the end of the year, they're going to have launched what they call SGE. And it's going to be a new change to how Google shows their search engine results page. It will still have some familiar things like ads. It's very convenient, but their ads will still be at the top. But you will see an infusion of AI, and other results will look and feel different. And so that is a direct result of the launch of things like ChatGPT and Google Bard. And really, you're going to see that across the board with Google and Bing. Another thing that will change, kind of back to the spinster example, is that there is no doubt that things will not stay the same. It's just inevitable that roles and labor within organizations will change according to supply and demand. Just think of the spinster and spinning Jenny example that was brought up earlier. It's just the same kind of model. There may be less jobs, or there may be more jobs. But one thing is for sure, the role within those organizations and what people will be focused on will be entirely different than what we were focused on a year ago. It's just the fact of the matter that AI has changed the game. And then lastly, I'll just say this, that no matter what, and this is marketing from the 1700s to today and moving forward, marketing with a human touch will always win. So you can leverage AI as much as you want, but at the end of the day, it's the human creativity, it's the human connection, and the human mind that will always win. So keep that in mind when moving forward with your marketing career. And that is it. I'll kind of open up the floor for any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jared. Yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to drop it in chat. I did put the YouTube link in that Jared had mentioned into the chat. So if anyone wants to grab that. And then I've also put my email in the chat. It's ricky@blinkjarmedia.com. If anyone would like a copy of the presentation, we'll be happy to send it to you. Just drop me a message.
Hey, Ricky and Jared. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to say thank y'all and thanks for inviting my students to that. I thought it was super valuable. I'm looking forward to posting it to all my classes and maybe having you guys in one of my classes or more this semester. But it was great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron, I'd love to come talk in person. Just let us know. I can definitely dive deeper into some of these things. And
yeah, well, we have like a whole digital marketing curriculum thing that we're trying to sort of revamp now. So one of my projects with independent study students is actually talking to business people that are using AI in their marketing and seeing how we can like revamp the educational part of that.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. And for those of you in the Netherlands and Toronto and Italy, we can definitely come there as well. Just let us know. That was a joke.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy. Yeah, Joshua, I'll send Jared. He can head over that way.
Would love to.
All right. I'll volunteer as a tribute. Couch. Perfect. That's perfect. All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, shoot me an email if you'd like a copy of this. And we are working on the fourth quarter hug. So if you've attended, you will get an email. If you registered, you'll get an email when we have those details. And that should probably be happening. It's August now. Yeah, maybe in October. We'll see. But we'll shoot you guys an email when we have the date and the topic picked out. But thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.